If I were to ask you this morning, what is the greatest enemy of missions across the world? The greatest enemy of missions, that enemy against which we struggle. A hard-nosed, vicious enemy. It gives no quarter. It takes no captives, no prisoners. It has at its very heart, in the core of its very being, a passionate desire to prevent the spread of the gospel across this world. A passionate desire to derail those who would serve the God of heaven. A passionate desire to prevent those who might potentially serve God and deceive them, destroy their effectiveness. If I were to ask you that question this morning, what would your answer be? Some might say communism. Some might say humanism. And those are pretty good answers, but they're not the enemy, not the enemy. Some might say Satan himself. And of course that is true. He is the arch enemy of everything that is of God. But the enemy I'm talking about this morning, beloved, is a real one, ever present. And we're surrounded by him. It's the enemy that brought upon Japan the calamity that is theirs today. You'll remember, some of you who were here on Thursday evening last, that I mentioned the tragedy of Japan. 120 million people, 60% of whom claim to be atheists. Only 0.5%, in fact less than that, 0.44%, make any claim whatsoever to be a Christian, and that includes the Catholics. The equivalent, if translated into terms, American terms, the equivalent of having in the United States of America a population of pushing now 270 million people, of having in the United States of America 1,300,000 Christians. That's all. This enemy, beloved, brought about the death of Japan. This enemy doomed the people of Japan in multiplied millions to an eternity separated from the God of heaven in a disaster called hell. And that enemy is all around us here in the United States. In fact, he is the God of the United States. For it was that God who rose up and prevented young men and women from answering the call of General Douglas MacArthur to go to the land of Japan with the gospel. And we turned our back upon Japan when it was wide open, being ruled by the United States, with the governor being General Douglas MacArthur. And then Japan discovered who the real God of America is. And they began to worship him, our most deadly enemy as far as the gospel is concerned, the most deadly enemy of missions in the United States of America, became the God of Japan. Now, you know where I'm going? The most deadly enemy of America, of the gospel, beloved, the most deadly enemy of missions and reaching this world with the gospel is the American dream. The God of America. Japan discovered that what America really worships is a good education, a good job, a good maid, a good home, and good security for your old age. But you see, it didn't start with America. We find a good example of it back here in the book of Numbers, chapter 32, our text for this morning. Now, when we arrive at chapter 32 of the book of Numbers, having read chapter 31, we find that Israel has had a tremendous battle with the Midianites. And by the grace of God, they have won that battle. And Israel, the people of Israel, are awash in the spoils of 675,000 sheep, 72,000 head of cattle, 61,000 asses have been captured, and they have in their possession 32,000 virgin slave women. A tremendous victory has been accomplished, and because of it, they are awash in the spoils of that victory. And they're rich, and they're able to bring to God a huge offering of sheep and cattle. And in fact, they give an offering of gold that totals in today's money $146,730 worth of gold. Enter Reuben. And I want you to carry this away this morning. This two-word phrase, beware Reuben. For we read in verse 1 of chapter 32, after this tremendous victory, the people are now preparing to cross the Jordan and take the promised land by warfare. And we read, now the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had a very great multitude of cattle. And when they saw the land of Jazer and the land of Gilead, that behold, the place was a place for cattle, the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spake unto Moses and unto Eleazar the priest and unto the princes of the congregation, saying, Aseroth and Dibon and Jazer and Nimrath and Heshbon and Eliah and Shibam and Nebo and Beon, even the country which the Lord smote before the congregation of Israel, is a land for cattle, and our servants have cattle. Wherefore, said they, if we have found grace in thy sight, let this land be given unto thy servants for a possession, and bring us not over Jordan. Mark it, young people, the Adamic nature will always say to you, bring us not over Jordan. We have land and cattle. The prospects are good for a prophet. Give us this land for a possession. Let us stay where we are. Let us enjoy the spoils of the victory. Let us enjoy the cattle. Let us enjoy the presence of our wives and children. Bring us not over Jordan. This, beloved, is no time for us to go to battle. We are, after all, enjoying the spoils of the American dream. Oh, it hurts to speak to Christian high schools. You had a preacher here once preaching. I won't mention his name. I spoke in his church. I had spoken in his Christian school. And I found that the children in that school, the young people in that high school, had been in that high school from K4. And there were 60 seniors and juniors in the class. 60 of them. This was no small Christian school. And those young people refused to sing in chapel. And they've been in a Christian school since K4. And I preached my heart out to them for 2 days. In fact, the last chapel was unlimited. We started at 9 o'clock, and that chapel was to close whenever I got through preaching. And so we showed slides to them first and showed some things of interest about Africa and South America. And then I preached, beloved, until 12:30. I gave them both barrels, and I reloaded, and I gave them 2 more, and I gave them until the barrel was so hot you couldn't touch it. And the next Sunday morning we were there, and Louise was walking down the hallway with their homeroom teacher. And he said to my wife, "Would you like to know the response of our young people?" And she said, "Yes." And she said, "I got them in homeroom that afternoon after chapel. And I asked them, 'What did you think of the messages?' And they said to him, 'Mister, when that missionary talked about sacrificing and serving for the God of heaven, we turned him off. We have one ambition, and that is to capture and enjoy the good life of the United States of America.'" And they had been in a Christian school since K4. It happened Sunday night. There was a good crowd, fine crowd of people who were absolutely entranced. They sat there intent and so silent you could have heard a pin drop in that church. And over here on the side was the group of young men and women from their Christian high school. And they sat there, stony faced. And why did they sit there stony faced? Because they're living in a land that has been judged by the God of heaven. Not judged with war, not judged with plague, not judged with sickness, not judged with calamity, but judged with prosperity. And they have had to choose between going over Jordan and staying with Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh and taking care of their wives and their children and their cattle. Don't take us over Jordan. Always the old Adamic heart of Reuben cries, "Don't take us over Jordan." Sounds to me more like Lot than Abraham. Sounds to me more like Obadiah than Elijah. Sounds to me more like Peter than Jesus. And you can give every excuse you want. Lord, we can man the Golan Heights against the Syrians. Lord, we can occupy the West Bank against the Jordanians. And again, the Spirit of God cries out to our spirits, "No man that warreth entangleth himself with the affairs of this world." Beware, Reuben, young people. Beware the American dream. Girls, beware the Adamic nature saying, "I can't go to the mission field. I'm scared of snakes. I'm afraid of spiders. Ooh, I couldn't live in places like that. Beware Reuben. He'll deceive you every time. And the heart of Reuben flies every time in the face of Romans 12:1 and 2. I beseech you, ye know it. Therefore, brethren, by the mercies of God, that you give yourselves a living sacrifice. And it worked out that way for these tribes of Reuben and Gad never got into the mainstream of the nation. They were always far from the center of worship because they stayed on the wrong side of the Jordan of separation to the things of the God of heaven. Beware Reuben. Now they brought this matter up. Let's go on with this passage. In verse 6, Moses responds. Now Moses has certain reservations about this. He listens to the reasoning. I've broken this chapter down with some R's. The first one is the reasoning of Reuben. And the second is the reservations of Moses. He has some reservations about this idea. And what he says in verse 6, 7, and 8 is, we've been here before. Moses said unto the children of Gad and the children of Reuben, shall your brethren go to war, and shall ye sit here? Wherefore discourage ye the heart of the children of Israel from going over into the land which the Lord hath given them? Thus did your fathers, when I sent them from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. This has happened before. We've been here before, fellas. Why, when I sent your fathers to spy out the land, it was the heart of Reuben that came back saying, there's giants in the land. They're too powerful for us. Don't take us over the Jordan. Every time, beloved, the heart of Reuben, the attitude of the Gadites and the Reubenites and the Manassites, don't take us over Jordan. Every time it wants to stone the Caleb. It'll stone the Joshuas. Don't believe it? Go to the 13th chapter of the book of Numbers. Numbers chapter 13. When you go to chapter 16, you see it happening all over again. They come back in chapter 13 from spying out the land. And they tell them, listen, now that's a beautiful land. But listen, verse 28, nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land. And the cities are walled. The enemy out there is powerful and multitudinous. And we tell you, if you go over there, we're going to take a beating. We're going to lose truth. Something about it, young people. We have a God in America that's spelled H-E-A-L-T-H. We worship him with all our might. And we don't realize that every warfare causes casualties. From every warfare, some come back halt and maimed, and others do not come back at all. And if you're going to cross Jordan, if you're going to go to war for the God of heaven, you've got to do as I told my class this morning in missions. You've got to treat this body like a house. That's all it is. It's not you. It's a house. You live in that house. And you've got to tell that body on occasion when it hurts, shut up and get out of my way. And you've got to get up out of your sick bed And you've got to face danger. You've got to face the cannon of the enemy. And you've got to realize that in this warfare, some of God's soldiers are going to go down, halt and maimed and wounded by the enemy, their health destroyed. And some of them are going to give their lives in the service of the God of heaven. And Reuben and his spies will always say, it's too dangerous out there. The enemy is powerful and big and multitudinous. We can't take the land. And then they'll get the people together, like the common people of the churches, like the moms and dads, like the grandmas and the grandpas that can't bear to see the health and lives of their young people sacrificed in the service of the God of heaven. And the spirit of Reuben will rise up. And we read in verse 10, verse 1, and all the congregation, chapter 14 of Numbers, all the congregation lifted up their voice and cried. And the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel murmured against Moses and Aaron. Why? Because there was war ahead. And they weren't ready to pay the price of it. And so they concluded the thing to do was to stone them. And in verse 10, but all the congregation bade stone them with stones. And about that time God stepped in and just dropped a cloud of his Shekinah in their midst. Beware, Reuben, young people. Moses said your fathers did the same thing. We have cattle, he said, and Cain said it long ago. What's wrong with the fruits of the ground? And killed his brother. Lot said, the land is a fruitful one, and ended up pitching his tent toward Sodom and finally living there. We have wives and children and cattle. We have the American dream. And that's where our heart is, for our heart is where our treasure is located. Leave us here on this side Jordan. Send us not over Jordan. It happens again and again and again. The very heartbeat of Adam. The very voice of Reuben. Moses said, we've been here before. And reminded them of the fact that the sons of Reuben, Dathan and Abiram and On, had joined Korah and tried to depose Moses as leader of the people. And the ground had opened up and swallowed him. Now, you want to be on the side of Reuben? And then remember what Reuben's own father said of him. He's sensual, he's secretive, he's unstable as water, he's shaky and he's shifty. Reuben, beloved, is preoccupied with today. Preoccupied with the pursuit of pleasure and possessions. He hides his light under a bushel under the pressure of business, and he hides his light under a bed under the pressure of pleasures and ease. That's Reuben. And that is integrally wrapped up in the American dream today. And that's why I say again and again, beloved, unless the American dream dies, this world is going to die in their sin. Reuben, over and over again. Every time there's a battle to be fought, every time there's a building to be built, every time there's a bulwark to be raised, every time there's a bugle to be heard, Reuben says, cattle before battle. Every time, cattle before battle. Sounds to me more like Lot than Abraham. Sounds to be more like Obadiah than Elijah. Sounds to be more like Peter than Jesus. Sounds strangely to me like the America of 1945 when we abandoned Japan and taught them who our real God is. Sounds strangely to me like the America of 1990 when we're about to abandon Europe and Zaire, Africa, and field after field of 104 wide open doors. And that's the old count. Now you add Eastern Europe, add them up, 120, 130 wide open doors to reach the world with the gospel. And our young men continue to say, we'll stay on this side of Jordan. There's a great job to be done here. America needs the gospel, and it does. But do you notice that they stayed where they had the sheepfolds and the cities, fenced in the midst of the inhabitants of the land? Do you notice, beloved, that the command of Scripture is not to build cities for ourselves, but to go out in war and capture the cities and strongholds of the enemy? There is a tremendous difference, and I say this to you, there's a tremendous difference between the lost of the world and the lost of the United States of America. And that difference is opportunity. Now, there's a need to preach the gospel in America, and I'm not saying there's no need. There's a tremendous need to preach the gospel in the United States of America. There's a tremendous need to win souls in the United States of America. I'm not saying anything against that. Please understand. But there is no person in the United States of America who can claim that he never had opportunity to hear the gospel. In order to not hear the gospel, he had to turn down tracks. He had to turn off the gospel programs on the radio. He had to flip to another channel on the TV. He had to ignore invitations again and again from local churches, advertising evangelistic meetings and services and missionary speakers. Every American who would hear could hear. But over Jordan, on the other side of Jordan, there are 3 billion people who have yet to hear the gospel for the first time and have no opportunity to hear the gospel, for there are no feet carrying that gospel. If you run the same percentage that other Bible colleges do, from this college, only 1% of the young men will ever reach the mission field. 1%. That's the average across America. In Bible colleges all across the land, of the 40,000 who are now students in our known Bible colleges, only 1,000 will ever attempt to go to the mission field, 1 in 40. And of that number, 600 of them will quit, either on deputation or by the end of their first term. So we will get out of 40,000 students in Bible college about 400 who stick to the task of reaching the lost over Jordan. About 1%. I say to you, young people, beware Reuben. There's an East Europe to be reached. Our hearts ought to be aflame. Our ears ought to be filled with the bugle call. Our strength ought to be marshaled to raise up a bulwark. Our very dream ought to be the taking of the cities of Satan ruled over him for hundreds of years, to cross the Jordan and go to war across the mission fields of the world. And I doubt the first Baptist missionary has reached them yet. Is it possible somehow that the Mormons can't hear Reuben? They've already put 360 missionaries into Hungary, and how many more in other countries? Is it possible the Moonies don't hear Reuben? Is it possible the Seventh-day Adventists don't hear Reuben? Is it possible their bugle is clearer and louder than ours? Is it possible somehow they've learned to deny the American dream and become a Joshua or a Caleb? God forbid. Beware, Reuben. So in verse 16 we read this. Now don't worry about that. No, don't worry about that. What we got to do is build a strong homeland, a strong base. Listen to it. They came near to him and said, we will build. Now here's Adam caught. Here's Adam caught. You know what happens when Adam gets caught? He changes like a chameleon. Now Adam comes creeping back. He's been caught. He's exposed. He's right out there. Your fathers did the same thing. Look at the record of the spies. Look at the record of Korah and those who assisted him. Your fathers did the same thing. No, we won't do that. Here's old Adam coming at him. No, we won't do that. Look at verse 16. They came near unto him and said, we will build sheepfolds here for our cattle and the cities for our little ones. We're going to build a strong home base. So we ourselves will go ready, armed before the children of Israel until we have brought them into their place, and our little ones shall dwell in the fenced cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We will not return unto our houses until the children of Israel have inherited every man his inheritance. For we will not inherit with them on yonder side of Jordan or forward, because our inheritance is fallen to us on this side Jordan eastward. And Moses said unto them, if you'll do this thing, if you'll go armed before the Lord to war, and will go all of you armed over Jordan before the Lord until he hath driven out his enemies from before him, and the land be subdued before the Lord, and afterward ye shall return and be guiltless before the Lord and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession. Now listen, but if you will not do so, behold, you have sinned against the Lord, and be sure your sin will find you out. All right, we're going to build a strong home base, but we'll send soldiers. And they did. Yeah, they sent 40,000 soldiers to fight, and they kept 70,000 soldiers to defend their women and children. Yeah. Sound familiar? Very familiar. So the strong home base, when will it ever be done? Reuben, he's out there talking. Always. Old Adam. Now let me give you an example here. Let's read Judges 5, and I have 7 minutes, and we're going to wrap this up. I didn't believe I'd make it. Judges chapter 5. And we are reading the Song of Deborah. You know it's not over when you fight one battle. The fight isn't over when the gong rings for the end of round one. The football game isn't over after the third quarter, nor is the golf tournament over at the 17th hole. You got to play the whole game. You got to fight the whole war. And what happened the second time around? They sent their 40,000 men, but what happened when the battle broke out again? Listen to it. Here is the song of Deborah and of Barak, Judges 5, verse 15. And the princes of Issachar were with Deborah, even Issachar and also Barak. He was sent on foot into the valley. There's a tremendous battle going on, and Barak is sent to call the troops. He sent with a bugle, there's a war on, come and help. And what happened? For the divisions of Reuben were there with great thoughts of heart. Twice it says that. For the divisions of Reuben were there with great searching of heart. They were playing onward, Christian soldiers marching as to war. What patriotism! But they didn't come to battle. And he asked Reuben, why abodest thou among the sheepfolds to hear the bleating of the flock? Eventually, beloved, the cattle got him. Eventually the cattle became so important that the second time the battle came up, they sent no one. And look at it in verse 17. Gilead abode beyond Jordan. They didn't come either. And why did Dan remain in ships? Asher continued on the seashore and abode in his breeches. Just kept on fishing. Moses said, we've been there before. And Reuben said, no, we won't do that. And Moses said, beware, your sin will find you out. And it did. By that time the cattle had captured them, and the fishing had captured them, and they were finished fighting. Oh yeah, they cherished great ambitions for liberty and formed high resolves to hasten to the aid of their brethren. But when it came to fighting, Zebulun and Naphtali were the ones who hazarded their lives for the God of heaven. I say to you, young people, beware Reuben. Now I'm going to quit there. Time is up. I'm not quite finished. I don't know what I'm going to do Tuesday. My next Tuesday, my last opportunity to speak to you. I may come back to the subject or may just go to another one, but I'll give you a verse to carry home. Luke chapter 9. And verse 23 and 24. And he said to them all, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, but whosoever will lose his life for my sake, the same shall save it. What does it mean to deny yourself? We spoke of it in missions class today. It means simply to deny your soul. That word self is nous, N-O-U-S. It means soul. Now, man is a tripart being. His body, that's his house. He is soul. That's what makes him a human being who naturally lives in the world. That makes him comfortable in the world. And his spirit is that which enables him to communicate with the God of heaven and God with him. What did the Lord Jesus say must happen if you're going to serve the God of heaven? You're going to have to deny your soul. You're going to have to say to Reuben, no way. All the cattle and sheep and oxen of this world will not keep me from crossing Jordan. Away with Reuben is the response of everyone who takes up the cross of self-denial. Beloved, beware Reuben. Father, bless now this portion of thy word to our hearts. Teach us, O God, to cross Jordan. Oh God, don't let it be Japan all over again. Don't let it be Japan all over again. For Jesus' sake. Amen. Not giving an invitation this morning. Go home and think about it. And pray about it. God bless you.